All right, everybody, back with us. Thank you for joining us on New York Got Game, Knicks Weekly Live. Dexter, Henry, Bryan, Fonseca in the building with you, or you in the building with us, however you want to say it. Bryan, what's up? How you doing?
Doing all right. As we're doing this, the Jets are playing the Texans, so I know a lot of people are going to have their eye on that as well. I will for fantasy purposes, but we're here to talk Knicks today, and the Knicks kind of, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but they kind of righted the ship after a I don't want to say worrisome loss to Cleveland, but it was maybe mildly surprising if you're not as high on the Cavs as maybe I was last time we talked about the Eastern Conference last week.
Yeah, it was. And some people, I think what we're seeing, and we'll talk a lot in this episode, is you're going to see the pendulum swing from both weeks. After game one last week, we were talking about after Boston. Not everybody, but some people were jumping out the window. You saw them right the ship, if for lack of a better term, against Indiana. Get things right. Then you see the loss to Cleveland this week, and then a bounce back in Miami. Let's start with the loss to Cleveland, right? 110 to 104 on Monday night. Knicks fall to the Cavs at the Garden. Did you have any concerns when you watched that game? I mean, I came out of it with some concerns about the volume of three-point shooting, and I think that was a concern definitely following that game because they were dead last in the NBA after that game in terms of the amount of three-point shots they were getting up. And then there's been a lot of discussion this week about some people, and I think their takes are really old, that the three-point shot is ruining the game. I think that's very archaic. I don't agree with any of that. But it was a concern for me, at least, right? Like, I at least was like, okay, this is something they have to do. And I want to be clear, and we'll get into this more. For me, it was not about, all right, they just got to get up more three-point shots, right? It was about the quality of those three-point shots that they got up and how exactly that was looking within the offense. That was my one takeaway, and I felt like the offense still looked a little clunky. I guess you could also be concerned about Karl-Anthony Towns. He only had 8 attempts in that game, so I feel like that was kind of a legit concern, but I wasn't like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I wasn't even over a 6 about this concern, to be quite honest. So where were you? What did you see from that game, that loss earlier in the week, right before they start this 4-game road trip that maybe had you say, oh, I don't know about that?
Yeah, I felt like going into it, it was going to be a battle of pace because Cleveland is playing faster this year with Kenny Atkinson, and they're undefeated as of the time of recording this. The Knicks, to the surprise of really no one, they're last in pace so far after four
Right.
games. But this is like, you could say, oh, it's only early on in the season, but this is the Tom Thibodeau trend. They're typically in the bottom two or dead last, just straight up dead last, which has been a thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing because they've yielded positive results over the last couple of regular seasons. And then last year, really the last 2 years in the playoffs, they got to the second round, despite, the pace situation. But Cleveland top 10 in pace. And I felt like, you felt it watching the game. There were times where they wanted to push. They didn't get as many field goal attempts as I thought they probably would have in the end. The Knicks had more, but the Knicks also did a better job of rebounding on the offensive glass in particular. And they won the rebounding battle. But to your point about the threes, if it just goes straight, this was like a big thing we hit on last week. But if you just go straight into the numbers of it, like the Knicks were 9 of 28 from three. 28 threes in terms of attempts in today's NBA is low.
Yeah.
And Cleveland, who put up 36, they only made 12 of them. That's kind of low for like where I think they're going to be, or where they ideally want to be. And we both know from covering the Nets, Kenny Atkinson would want that number to be higher. But still, you attempted 8 more, you made 3 more, you made 33% from 3-point range. From the field, they were effective. They were about 48%. They also got to the free throw line a fair amount. And then in just looking at like the balance, and this is something that we harped on last week, where like opposing point guards or opposing guards in general, they're going to have opportunities against the Knicks. And that's something that they have to clean up. Like Darius Garland had 34. Donovan Mitchell had 25. That's a combined about 60 points. And we'll get into the Heat game a little bit, but Tyler Hero had a big night. And then Terry Rozier, who was off, really heated up in that fourth quarter, ended up getting his over, which is important for some of us. And, they ended up combining for 50-ish. It was close to 50 points or whatever the case may be. It didn't end up mattering Wednesday night, but against Cleveland, like that's something to watch because I don't think this is going to be, if they face each other in the playoffs, I don't think it's going to be the same sort of soft Cleveland Cavalier team from 2 years ago. Now they still have to prove some things in the playoffs. I don't think that, I told you last week, I think the Knicks would still beat them in a playoff series
Yeah.
if we get to that point, but it's still something to watch out for because I think this team is working on turning a corner in terms of making people believe in them.
Yeah, I did have that same feeling about the Cavs, right? I know we're not here deep diving in the Cavs, but I did have that takeaway that this is a team sort of shifting their identity for the good. And I think a lot of that starts with the improvement that we saw from Evan Mobley. You're seeing him sort of evolve into a better two-way player. People have been asking for more on the offensive end. He seems to have grown some confidence from last year in the playoffs. This is not the same Cleveland Cavaliers team. And I think they're going to play the Knicks differently. They're not as soft. I don't always like throwing around that label, but they look a little bit tougher, right? In that regard, at least. I think for me, I saw a lot of discussion from Knicks fans, and thank you to all the Knicks fans checking in, whether you're watching on Twitter, whether you are watching on YouTube, Facebook, wherever it may be. Thank you for checking with us live. Leave us a comment. Let us know how you feel. Any questions, comments you want us to address, we will address that. We are expecting Al Cintron of WFAN to join us here on the show to talk some Knicks hoops. But Bryan, I do agree when you looked at that and there was this concern, okay, the Knicks are not taking enough threes. When I also looked at the threes they were taking, I didn't think they were bad quality three-pointers they were taking, just not getting enough. It's a math game now in the NBA, right? And your superstars have to be taking more shots. Karl-Anthony Towns in that game, only going 4 of 8. That was a little concerning to me. Now, any of that concern got alleviated in the next game against Miami, which we will get to. But I think that was a takeaway for me. I still think, with all that being said, even how I felt on Monday with the loss of Cleveland, which was disappointing for the Knicks, right? Because they also blew a lead that they had in the second half. And then this is where it's a little disappointing. They blew that lead. You saw them not able to hold it down in the fourth quarter. I think a lot of that is the offense still feels a little bit clunky, right? Like they're still working through things. And the thing I want to say to Knicks fans, and I think we have to all pump our brakes on this, is like, this is to be expected. I'm not shocked at any of this through the first 4 games, right? Like this was going to be expected. This team was not going to have it all together. It's going to take time to gel. There are 3 new starters. They're going to have some ups and downs. And I think we'll lead into some of the positives that we saw in last night's game, again, the win over the Heat on the road to start this road trip. I think there were positives there where you can say, okay, they're going to get it together. But there's going to be some nights where I think the offense is going to look clunky. They are going to be trying to figure some things out. And yes, you do not want your arguably second best player, second most talented offensive player in Karl-Anthony Towns shooting the ball 8 times, right? That is not a recipe for success. But I think as you're trying to figure it out and who knows their place and where to shoot and all that, I think that'll be fine. I did also think, you tell me how you feel about this. I did feel after that game and all the talk you heard, right? And you heard Jalen Brunson, make comments about how he thought Cat needed to get involved. I did feel like he was going to bounce back. Were you worried about Cat after that game against the Cavs? Because I did feel like he would bounce back. I really did.
I mean, it's October still for one more day. So like, it's hard to be like that concerned about these things. I do think and people could chime in the comments if they disagree, but I feel like if you're watching the last 2 games, you might be a little more concerned about Cat's game against Cleveland than you were excited about his game against the Heat, just from the standpoint of like, when we get to April, what's going to be in your mind more? Like, what are you more like, what are you thinking about, like, in terms of what's going to happen there, right? Like, what's the more likely outcome? Like Cat's history, we would say, oh, you hope that he doesn't have one of those games. If you're a Knicks fan, you hope that he doesn't have one of those games that he shoots 8 times, whatever the case may be. He's not going to have a lot of like 40 pieces. I think the bounce back was to be expected because I felt like, all right, if they're talking about wanting to get him more involved and he only shot 8 times, and a natural thing in the NBA is the next game, you play through that star and then you figure out ways to get them involved. Miami's actually struggling with this right now because they don't have any balance to their offense, which we saw last night. Mm-hmm. With the Knicks, like I think there's going to be ebbs and flows of that, right? Like Jalen Brunson has had a couple of back-to-back shooting performances where he's, I think, 33% from the floor each
In
time.
both games, he shot 33%. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's something else that they're gonna have to figure out. Like, there's gonna have to be a game coming up where it's like, all right, how do you get Jalen Brunson efficient looks, not just him working super hard and getting to his spots? The whole purpose of Karl Anthony Towns being there so that Jalen Brunson doesn't have to work as hard, and it still feels like at times that he's having to do so. So this is all a balance that they're gonna have to find, that they're not going to find like now. It's just too early. It's only been a week plus of NBA regular season basketball, and this is something that's going to sort itself out over the course of the year, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so too. I thought one of the other interesting things from Monday's game that I'd take a look at was we saw Ariel Huckpurdy. We saw him get minutes, 12 minutes in this contest. He is 0 of 1 from the field, but he looked good in his minutes, looked active on the glass. Excuse me. I like seeing that. I wondered what that meant for Jericho Sims. Now, we did not see Huck Purdy play against the Heat, so I found that a little bit interesting. But on playing Huck Purdy after the game on Monday, Coach Tom Thibodeau, he was asked about that, and this is what he had to say about Ariel Huck Purdy, the rookie, getting minutes, 12 minutes to be exact, in the contest against the Cavs.
A lot of Ariel today. Everything okay with Jericho?
Yeah. Just getting a look at someone different to try to change it up. They're big, so pretty dynamic. So, we wanted to see what it looked like.
What did you make of how he played?
Good. I thought his minutes were solid.
Yo, and look, I like that. I like the fact that, listen, Coach Tibbs has gotten a lot of heat over the years, which I have staunchly pushed back against. Oh, he doesn't play young players. The track record does not say that. The track record is not true at all whatsoever. I like that he played Huck Purdy there. I like that he saw. Look, now, guys, I'm not sure what that says about his confidence in Jericho Sims, right? Like, I think there's a fair thing to ask about that he wanted to see a look at him this early against a team in the East that goes with two bigs, right? I think it says something there. I'm not saying read into too much. I'm just saying maybe Tibbs is not as confident in Jericho Sims, and why not throw Huck Purdy? Now, I thought Huck Purdy handled himself well in the 12 minutes. I don't think he's totally out on Sims because we saw him play against the Heat and do well. Did you like Huck Purdy, Bryan, getting some time here? Because I did. I high on him. I talked about it last week. I think he's got a little bit of Isaiah Hartenstein-ish game in him that I think can be developed. What do you think about Huck Purdy getting minutes, and what do you think that means for Sims? Because I just feel like the minutes that he could be getting a little tight here. You know what I mean?
I was pretty surprised because we talked about this where Jericho Sims is going to get his chance because he is contractually, it's going back to the business of basketball. He's in the last year of his contract. So you're going to see what you have before you make the absolute final decision on whether or not you're extending him, as unlikely as that may seem, or whether or not you're just letting him go. Because I doubt he's really a trade piece at this point. He's maybe a filler or throw in at best. I don't think he's somebody you're going to, especially on an expiring contract, he's somebody you're going to move and get like a real, draft asset, so to speak, back. So you're going to see what you have in Jericho Sims for the Knicks. I figured that at some point, because Jericho Sims has kind of, he seems to be who he is for the most part, with all due respect, that they would go take a look at Huck Purdy at some point in the season, not necessarily on October 28th.
Game 3. You didn't have that on your bingo card. Game 3?
I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. And this is 2 games. This is 2 games after we're watching Knicks Celtics. Who's the first person off the bench? It's Jericho Sims, who's second in bench minutes to Deuce McBride, who goes crazy in that game. Right. And it's like, okay, so Jericho Sims is going to get extended run. This makes a lot of sense because Precious Achiuwa is out. Mitchell Robinson's out. You need centers. You need to find a center. You need to see if you have a diamond in the rough here, or you can make one or whatever. And your second round pick, I don't think this is going to be his only look, Huck Purdy. And I think that look, he may see G League assignments, whatever the case may be, to actually get those reps and get playing time. Like, that would be the smart thing to do because he's a rookie. But at the same time, like, that was an interesting signal to me that you just mentioned this, and I think it's a good point. Against Cleveland specifically, let's see what this kid has. Not against Washington, not against Brooklyn, not against Portland. You know what I mean? Not even against the Bulls, like against Cleveland specifically. I found that very interesting. And it could also be like, hey, it's October, let's see. But I think if Jericho Sims really had a stranglehold on a rotation spot, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, no, I think so. I do think it's interesting. You also didn't see him against Miami, but I think it goes to that point that Tibbs really wanted to see how you handle two bigs, a good rebounding team in Cleveland, and can that happen? Nostalgic Nick, shout out to you. Appreciate you checking in. He says, shouts to the Huck Hive. I didn't even know Huck Purdy had a hive already. I had no idea. Huck Purdy has a hive already. He got one regular season game of playing time, and we got a hive. I like it, though. I like it. I'm a fan of Huck Purdy. I want to see what he gets. I think it's very interesting how he could look when, I will say, even when Precious Achiuwa comes back, right? Because he's the guy that's going to slot in. I think play some of that backup four. How he looks when he comes back is going to be very interesting. Got somebody else checking in here. Alex Dunn. Shout out to you. Huck Purdy was a good pro for a few years in Australia. That is correct. And that you can tell he's absorbing the knowledge from the U.S. pros. He seems to be picking things up quickly compared to some college rookies. Well, Alex, I will say this. And Bryan, somebody who knows this about me and talking about basketball, I think there's a lot that can be gained from people who played basketball on a professional level internationally. I think it matters a lot when they're young that they played professionally. They played with other grown men. So sometimes that doesn't surprise me when they get a shot in the NBA and they come and, it looks good and they're productive. And I think, to your point, Alex, Huck Purdy didn't look overmatched by the moment. He seems to be trying to seize the moment. He wasn't also trying to do too much. Now, he did have a fantastic dunk that was taken away that I think was an absolute terrible call. Terrible, terrible call. They called him for an offensive foul. I didn't like it. I thought he should have had that banged on. I don't even remember who he banged on. I think it might have been Evan Mobley, actually. But he got called for the offensive foul on that. But he looked the part of being comfortable out there. And I do think that matters. That matters to some degree. I do think that matters. I'm glad people are liking what they're seeing from Huck Purdy thus far. I think he's looked pretty good so far. So I like what we're seeing from him. So I think that was some of my takeaways from that Cleveland game. Look, you could be disappointed with the amount of threes that they got up in that one. I think you had to be encouraged a little bit by Huck Purdy. You saw some other players shoot the ball well. Josh Hart did his thing rebounding the ball, which is a good thing for me to see against a good rebounding team in Cleveland in that game. And we'll get to Josh Hart a little bit later. And so, we'll see how it goes with that. Alex, I'm glad you agree with me, saying that the dunk call was BS. Absolutely glad you agree with me. I could not agree more. That dunk should have counted. It was good. It had the crowd hyped. I actually had that on while I was watching the Steelers game, and that made me stop from watching the Steelers game because that was good. Go Steelers, by the way. Yeah, man, 110-104, that loss on Monday. I don't think the Knicks fan can get terribly down about this. I really don't. I don't think you can get too down about it. I think it's okay. I think, coming out of that, you're going to have some of that happen early in the season, and, it is what it is. Now, Bryan, we got to move along, and we got to get to what we saw down in South Beach, or the place I like to call MSG South, because Knicks fans take over the building, and they let you know it. Knicks, last night, Wednesday night, fantastic win, 116-107 over the Heat, starting a 4-game road trip. And the main story here is Mr. Karl Anthony Towns, a.k.a. Bodega Cat, which is the only nickname we should be using. That man was on the prowl. He was killing. He was great on the boards, 13 boards, 4 or 5 from downtown. This after only having 8 shots. What did you see, B, that got him, how the Knicks were able to get him more involved? Because one of the things I did notice, and you touched on this, right? The Knicks, specifically Brunson, right? last 2 games, shot 33% in each game. And Brunson talked about how he needed to get Karl-Anthony Towns more involved in this game. And he seemed early in this game, even when his shot wasn't falling, to be looking to get his teammates involved. Finished with 9 assists, which I actually like to see. When your shot's not falling as a point guard, I think that's a good thing to do. And that shows a lot of Brunson's leadership there. But what did you like about how he was able to get Cat involved, particularly in pick and roll situations? What did you like about that 2-man game and just how Cat was able to put up more shots and obviously be more efficient in the game against Miami?
Yeah, they took advantage of the Heat not offering typical Heat-like defensive resistance, I feel like, and they were able to get him in spots near the basket, maybe 15 feet out, maybe 10 feet out, like where he's comfortable, some post-up situations. Was actually 6 of 8 against Bam, and I regard Bam very highly as a defender. I think he's as good as anyone on the planet in terms of defense. But Karl-Anthony Towns, like, it didn't matter. And also it's a better matchup for him than Cleveland, honestly, because of the size difference. Like he's going to have a size advantage in this particular matchup. Like, and Alex makes a comment about like how the 4 teams that they've played already, they all play sort of different defensively. Like, yeah, like against Cleveland, you're not going to, against Miami, you're not going to see like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. You're not going to see a lot of length. It's a different challenge. Then with Boston, you're going to have to figure out the spacing piece of it because Kristaps Porzingis is there, but also like they were comfortable throwing Drew Holiday on you. So you have to navigate that. Miami has Bam and Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy Butler is not going to guard somebody who's like 7 feet tall typically. Like it's going to be like just different sort of things that we see throughout the year. But this was the game that Cat needed to have just from a standpoint of like, okay, he had 8 shots in this previous game. Now it's time to see what he can do in this next matchup or whatever the case may be. So I think that with Karl-Anthony Towns, like that was encouraging. It's also October. And I think Knicks fans will remember this when we get to the playoffs or whatever the case may be. But I don't know how much people are going to care unless he obviously does this like later in the season. Like it's nice for now. I don't mean to minimize it, but it's also October. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying because you got to be balanced on both sides and be measured, right? And take this with a grain. I'm not saying Knicks fans, you shouldn't be hyped about that. That's actually not what I'm saying. You should. It was a bounce back game. He had 8 shots against Cleveland. He's 44 points in this game and did it. I think Bryan makes a good point against one of the best, if not best, defenders in the league. Yeah. And a lot of people think who should rightfully be in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe Bam finally gets one this year. I know Bryan thinks he should have got at least a couple before.
He ain't gonna get one this
year. That's a whole other story, but somebody in San Antonio might have something to say about that. I do think it matters that he did this against Bam. I think one of the things is you look at the rebounding he had in this game, and he had 3 big offensive rebounds, some really big ones, and some really good putbacks.
Yeah.
And for those of you out there who think Cat is soft, I've disagreed with that notion. I think the more concern with Cat is sometimes the silly fouls, which we did see some of in this game.
That's true.
We did see some of those.
He had 5 still. He managed to get there.
That has been my concern. I think that's something we'll definitely talk about more as this season goes on. But I think that it was a strong game. It was good to see Brunson trying to get him involved, looking from him. He looked really confident from 3. There was even a 3 late in the game that he shot where I was like, oh, he shot it so quick in the shot clock. I was like, that's not a good shot. And then he hit it. And I was like, okay, I'll just shut up.
His confidence has to be like that was great to sort of, if I don't know, like he's an NBA player ultimately, like, yes, they can struggle with confidence too, but still like a lot of these guys who get there, and I mean this in a positive way, delusional. Like they always believe like they could bounce back from the next thing. So I'm not saying this like he was down in the dumps after that game against Cleveland, but if he had any doubts, it was good to see like them trying to sort of reinstill that with the way they played, the confidence in him for him to get 44. And now it's a matter of, okay, can you take this and string together like some measure of consistency? Because that's something you haven't necessarily seen yet. Now it's only been 4 games, but if Cat could consistently produce not 44 points per game, you don't need that. But if he could produce to his ability, which is what you traded for him, to do, then yeah, you'll feel more encouraged as long as it's like a sustainable sort of effort, not that, and to make sure that this isn't a one-off, so to speak.
That's the thing I feel like Knicks fans reasonably can be excited about here, right? This is part of what you just said. This is what you traded for in Karl-Anthony Towns, right? On a night where Jalen Brunson shoots 33%, he's 6 of 18 from the field. He doesn't have it all. I do think Brunson did some good things, and we'll get to that in a second, that I think should be noted.
Yeah.
but you get him to go 17 for 25. This is what you want to see out of Cat. Can he step up? My only concern, I will continue to say this with Cat, I think he can step up and do these things offensively. More of my concern is, will he be on the floor by not doing dumb things defensively? But listen, if Bodega Cat plays like Bodega Cat, everybody's happy. It looks good. It takes pressure off Brunson, takes pressure off some of the other guys. Now, I talked about Brunson, and JB struggled from the field. 6 of 18, 3 of 7 from downtown, was 7 of 8 from the line, was a +5 in this contest. I thought part of the big thing is he had 9 assists. He had some really good assists. He was looking for his teammates early on when he started out this game, 1 of 7. He did do that. I think just the mere fact that he had said before this game, it's on me to get Karl-Anthony Towns more involved and make sure he doesn't have 8 shots. You like hearing that from your leader, but then to go out and see him do it when the shot wasn't falling, I think is really important. It shows Jalen Brunson also made big time shots in this game, and this is what you want your superstar player to do. When they don't have it, can they lift up the team in other different ways? And he did that. I loved how he bounced back in the second half in particular in this game. You know, Mikal Bridges also did not shoot the ball that well in this game, and I thought he shot the ball much better in the second half. What did you like, Bryan, about Brunson's ability to bounce back in this game and show you what he has as a leader for this team?
I mean, you expect it at this point. Like, he looked more comfortable in the second half. Now, part of this is the Heat have been an awful third quarter team, and their backcourt talented Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero, they struggle defensively, is the mild way to put it. Jimmy Butler's aging, so like Jalen Brunson has avenues to get to his spots against this defense. Like this isn't like the Heat defense of like the last couple years, so to speak. Specifically when Jimmy and Bam were like making deep playoff runs, at least not yet. And what Jalen Brunson was able to do was use that to his advantage, particularly against Terry Rozier at times, and just get to those areas. And also, like, I like when he becomes more of a playmaker, because Jalen Brunson's always going to draw so much attention. He had a 9-to-1 assist to turnover ratio last night, which is also a plus. And if you're looking at it from the perspective of, hey, he shot 6 of 18, I don't think that really tells the full story, particularly when you watch the second half efficiency, but also the little things he was doing in terms of playmaking. There were some hockey assists and things of that nature as well, which is always an indicator of like, it's not something that's going to be kept on a stat sheet, but he was facilitating. He was being a legitimate point guard and kept Karl-Anthony Towns in rhythm to get that 44 point performance. So I think, look, there's a reason why at the GM survey, when that dropped right before the season started, Jalen Brunson was up there in terms of who is the best leader in the NBA right now. It was like him, LeBron James, Steph Curry were like the top 3. Jalen Brunson is not like nobody saw this coming, right? And I think this is another reason why I like this team in terms of their playoff prospects, is because I feel like they're well led by not just Jalen Brunson, but also Tom Thibodeau, and combined, those two give the team an identity, where I felt like watching the game the entire time. I was like, they're going to beat this team. They're going to win this game. This is the bounce back spot for not just Cat, but also for the Knicks, because that loss to Cleveland was a tough one. And it's like, okay, Miami's not great at home for whatever reason. They're better on the road. So the Knicks could exploit that and then end up, taking a game, and they did. And now they're 2-2.
Now they're 2-2. Everything seems pretty good in Knicks land thus far. They start off a 4-game road trip with a win. Dexter, Henry, Bryan, Fonseca here with you. New York Got Game, Knicks Weekly Live, coming to you every week. We thank you for joining us. Everybody checking in on YouTube, on X. We appreciate you. We're still waiting to see if we can get Al Cintron, who's been having a little bit of technical difficulties, joining us, but we're trying to see if we can get him on as soon as possible. The great host from WFAN, to talk some Knicks hoops. When you also look at this, I really feel like, and I want to get to the chemistry around this team in a little bit. We talked about how the offense is still a work in progress, but I think another player that has to be highlighted, particularly in these last 2 games, particularly in the game you saw last night, I think his game is going to get overshadowed a little bit because of the 44 points that we saw from Karl-Anthony Towns. But, man, Josh Hart, for all of y'all out there who were worried about this man barely scoring in the preseason. It's like, oh, I don't know. What's Josh Hart going to do? He can't figure things out in the offense. I was not worried about Josh Hart, for one, because of this, Brian. Josh Hart, to me, I say this with all love to Josh Hart. Josh Hart is an elite role player.
Yeah.
Elite. He does not, sometimes you want him to shoot a little bit more. I hear you guys and all that, but this guy totally understands spacing. And what I think Josh Hart was doing a lot in the preseason was figuring out, okay, when this person has this ball and we're in this set, how can I move this person's double? Where can I move and cut to in this offense to make myself have the best opportunities to then do something with the ball, whether that's pass or shoot? And he's done that. And he's been a menace like we saw last year in the playoffs on the boards. 14 rebounds against Miami, 13 on the defensive end, also with 6 assists, 10 points. You look at that, 10, double-double, 6 assists. This guy makes winning plays. This guy makes winning plays time and time again. And it's not just me saying it. Coach Tibbs had this to say, too, after the Miami game about Josh Hart and why he's a winner on the court. I don't want to hear any more Josh Hart slander. Listen to what Tibbs had to say.
He said his shin was hurting.
Yeah.
43 minutes. The rebounds. I know Tyler Hero shot well, but he was chasing him around all the time.
And that's what you love about him. He's, like there's no other agenda other than winning. So whatever you ask him to do, he's going to give you everything he has, and then play off that. Whether he's initiating offense, he's getting extra possessions, he's moving without the ball, he's cutting hard to the basket. And anytime you cut hard to the basket, there was a great cut that he made late when Jalen found him. It was a big basket, but and that's what he does. He's very decisive with his cuts, and that puts, even if he doesn't get it, it's going to create an open shot for someone else. And there's real value in that, even though it's not going to be reflected in a statistic that's in a box score. But when you play like that, it makes the team a lot.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I love all that. I think Josh Hart's a winning player. I love him in the starting lineup. I know there's some talk about putting Deuce in over him. I think Josh Hart fits just fine. He's a connector. As he thrives and continues to play like this, which I thought he'd figure it out, it's only going to help this offense. Okay. I think his impact on this team is so valuable. So valuable. There was something when the Knicks traded for Josh Hart a couple years ago, someone texted me who's a Knicks fan and was like, Josh Hart doesn't really move the needle.
Oh,
I was like, no, man, you ain't been watching Josh Hart. you know what I mean? This person was not happy that they traded away Cam Reddish. And I was like, why?
My God. I forgot all about Cam Reddish's existence.
Yeah, a lot of us have. And I was like, why? And that was a fantastic trade for the Knicks. I think he's a fantastic fabric and part of this team. Let me know, fans. Am I tripping? Am I doing too much with the Josh Hart love fest here? But listen, I just think he's a winning player. And when I see that kind of impact he has in his team, especially in a game like they had down in Miami, I think it's huge. Bryan, are you with me? Or are you on the, Hart's maybe not as good as some people think?
How long have you known me? Like
Hey, actually, I explain to the people what a Bryan Fonseca All-Star is.
Josh Hart
is a Bryan Fonseca All-Star.
I love players like Josh Hart. Look, Tom Thibodeau, who, as you know, is a head coach and has been a coach for a long time.
Right.
He said in that press conference, the only agenda is winning with Josh Hart, which is translation, I'm going to play him 40 minutes whenever the hell I could.
And listen, I didn't even add that. He was questionable last night and played 42 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that's good. Because he probably didn't need to play 42 minutes.
Not in October, no.
Not in October, but it's Tom Thibodeau. And
I'm sure he really wanted that. Listen,
I'll leave it at that.
He didn't want to go 1-3. I'm sure that's part of it too.
Sure it is.
And again, Miami's not a good rebounding team. So this is where Josh Hart, it's like he can get those rebounds and really tilt the power balance of that game. And he has a double-double. He has the 40-plus minute performance. You want to guess how many minutes Cam Reddish has played this season? Did you know he was still with the Lakers?
I actually did not know that. I follow the league as closely as anybody. I actually thought when I said that, I was like, is he still in the league? And that's no shade to you, Cam Reddish. I just didn't know he was still in the league. I didn't know. I'm dead serious. I did not know. I had
A lot
no
of, a
idea
lot of
he was
people
in the
didn't
league.
like that trade. I was intrigued when the Knicks got him, but it was like whatever. But he's played 9 minutes this season so far for the Lakers. 9 in one game. He made his first appearance, I think last night or the night before, whenever the Lakers most recently played. So I think the Knicks won that deal. Josh
You
Hart is
think?
great. Josh Hart is great. He's everything that me personally want in a role player, that I'd want in a teammate, just in terms of how he plays. As Tom Thibodeau says, the only agenda with him is winning. He makes winning plays over and over and over. He hustles. Sometimes you don't want him to get hurt because of the way he plays, but
Right.
he can defend multiple positions. He can rebound over some guys. He can play the 4. He can play the 2. He can play the 3. He makes sense with a lot of different lineup combinations. And he's one of these guys, like when you look at win shares per 48, typically he's going to be at or near the top. I think right now, number 1 is Karl Anthony Towns with a bullet, like way ahead of everybody else. And Josh Hart is, I think, 3rd at the time we're recording this. Like, he's just one of those dudes. And you can trust him in a regular season game. You could trust him in a playoff game. You could trust him in the fourth quarter. The only thing really is, like, you want him to consistently be able to hit 3-point shots and take them when he's open. But obviously, like, you're not putting him out there for offense. He's typically going to be in any given lineup your 4th or 5th option. But he does all the other little things, and he can hit an open jump shot. You just want him to do it a little more regularly. But yeah, Josh Hart, that's my kind of dude in terms of basketball.
Yeah.
I like all the there's people that love like Cam Thomas and love like the Hooper stuff or whatever, and I think some of that's cool. But Josh Hart is my type of dude.
Yeah, that's the Bryan Fonseca All-Star. Trust me, it's a Bryan Fonseca All-Star. So in the Miami game, and we talk about this in contrast to the Cleveland game, right? Like 2 completely different games in terms of shooting from 3-point land. Knicks put up 43s in this game. They shoot 45% from downtown. They hit 18 of those. So the volume went up. Feels like about where Knicks fans would want it. Offense still a work in progress. You see the numbers here, right? 113 points per game, tied for 17th. Offensive rating, though, 119.6. Only Boston and Cleveland are higher. So if there's any indication for that, that should tell you, okay, that O rating can still go up and get better if they're able to hit more threes from downtown. That's because they generally, as a team, haven't shot that poorly. Even in that Boston game, remember, they shot the ball well. And that's what's really keeping their offensive rating pretty high. I haven't even looked at team effective field goal percentage, which is something else I like to look at as well, too. It impacts that offensive rating. But 43s, I like the volume. I thought it would go up. I thought they would figure it out. No longer last in the league in attempts from downtown. But did you like the quality? Because that's the thing for me, too. Everybody can talk about, oh, we got to get it up, got to get it up. We got to get the amount of threes up, but also the quality. I thought the quality was really good, especially the corner threes that Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby saw in this game.
Yeah, and the Heat give up corner threes. Like, this is something that they do, even when they're defensively solid, which they weren't last night, but even when they're defensively solid, like, you're going to have to give up something in the NBA because the game's just so fast now, so quick, and these guys are pros, elite, and you're going to have to give up something. Corner threes is something that they've been able to give up, and the Knicks took advantage of that. They're right now shooting 40% from 3 on a season, which is interesting. I think they're 3rd in 3-point percentage right now. No one's going to shoot 40% for the entire season. Like, that's going to level off at some point, but I think the percentage is going to be important because they're last in pace and they're probably going to be around there for the duration of the season. So you need to make the most of your opportunities. This is where people like Josh Hart actually come in handy because of the offensive rebounding to get those extra possessions, of which they had against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They just couldn't finish that contest, but they won the rebounding battle. So the rebounds are going to be important for a team that plays slow, as we've seen. And I think the efficiency is obviously going to be a factor too. I don't think they necessarily need to put up, like, they don't need, like, basically 50% of their shot diet against the Heat was from 3. I don't think they need it to go that far, but if it's there, take it. And it was there against, Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, who were like late to some of these rotations. They were creating looks. Like, it was a fun chess match to watch between the two teams, but the Knicks obviously got the better of it and they were able to generate those threes. So if you have the looks, take them. And that was one of those examples where the offense was really clicking, particularly in the second half, but really after the first few minutes of the third quarter where the Heat went on that early run and then just collapsed from there.
Yeah, and we're talking about the Knicks offense still being a work in progress. And shout out to our producer Jeff Stansberry, who gave me the details that I needed. Knicks second in effective field goal percentage. I talked about that. They're 57.5%. Only the Cavs are better at 62.4. Cavs playing really well right now, undefeated. Also, they are second behind the Cavs in true shooting percentage at 61. So really impressive what they've been able to do with their offense thus far, despite still trying to figure stuff out. Like, I do not think this offense by any means looks amazing right now, right? Like, there still is a ways to go. There still is things that they need to work on. So it doesn't look amazing right now. It looks like we might have my guy Al Cintron joining us here. Looks like he's able to come on. We're just waiting for him to put his camera on, and then we will get him up with us to talk some Knicks basketball, the great host from WFAN. But I think that you got to like, what you've seen. I really do thus far. And the Knicks, they're going to figure it out. There's going to be some nights it's going to look really good. There's going to be some nights where I think it's going to be a little ugly and it's going to be tough. But, I think it'll be fine. And I think this was a good start for them in terms of their road trip and getting things on. So right now we're going to introduce my guy from WFAN. This guy is one of the most passionate New York sports fans that I know. I'm sure he's got some stuff to tell me about the Yankees not winning the World Series, which I think. What's up, Al?
What's going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. I appreciate you here. I know you had a little technical difficulty getting with us, but you are here and well. I see you with the New York Knicks shirt on, the Mets hat on, a blue and orange vibes going on. Everything is good with you?
Yeah, I had a rough day, but everything's fine with me. So as long as when it comes to sports, that's the little escape. I think about real life stuff,
That is fair. Sports can be an escape for all of us. So considering it's an escape for us, Al, what's your vibes with this Knicks team 4 games into this season? 2-2 on the season, just coming off a win over Miami down in South Beach. What's your vibes with this Knicks team right now?
It's a long season. The same way I didn't get crazy when we lost to Boston by 30, the same way I didn't get crazy when we smacked the Pacers by 30. The only good thing about beating the Pacers by that much is Mr. Tyrese Halliburton over there didn't score any points. That was the beautiful thing about that. But as far as the season, it's going to be ups and downs. Didn't LeBron, Bosh, and Wade get off to like an 8-9 start, and LeBron threw the towel in Spoelstra's face, and they got to a rough start. So Knicks fans, don't get too crazy after a win, and don't get too crazy after a loss.
No, you're right. You got to keep it pretty leveled as much as you can. Al, just making sure you're still with us because we do not see you on the screen anymore. Just making sure you're still there. You were.
I'm here.
For some reason, it went black. We don't see anything for you right now. Yeah, we can't see anything.
The Chupacabra has it out for me tonight. I don't know what is going on.
well, it's Halloween, man. So I don't know. It's scary vibes. Scary vibes.
Yeah, it's Halloween, but I'm a light-skinned Puerto Rican. You're supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to see me. This is crazy.
Well, I think your fellow light-skinned Puerto Rican and Bryan Fonseca, I'm not gonna say it. He can agree with you. I have nothing to say on that regard.
There's a joke in here that I could make, but I'm not gonna do it. Just know it's a really good.
Dexter, I know what's going on with the camera, bro. It says options open, everything's good. I don't know what's going on.
Just make sure on your screen you possibly may have there might be an icon where the camera, if it has a red line over it, it could be that. I don't know if you hit something there that might have turned your camera off, so it's on. It's just weird. It went black.
And it looks like it's trying to come back also.
It felt like it was trying to come back, and then it wasn't there. If you have to pop out and rejoin us and come back in, feel free to do that. We'll get you right back.
Don't kill me. I'll be right back. Don't kill me.
All right, so Al's gonna come right back and join us. Brian's Puerto Rican brother will join us in 1 second as he comes back. But Al makes a good point, right? It's just 4 games. It's a long season.
Yeah.
You can't get too high. You can't get too low on these things. And I don't think Knicks fans have to jump out the window with this team that is going to take a little bit to figure it out. I know everybody wanted to come out the gate and go 10-0. I even said on our preview show for New York Got Game, there's a possibility that through 10 games they could go 5-5. we saw, and I'm sorry if I forget the commenter's name, it was Alex. Alex talked about their schedule to start the season and how they've played 4 playoff teams, for the best teams in the East. I would absolutely agree with that.
We should actually get into that also, like the schedule moving forward, because you've made that point a couple of times of them potentially going 5-5, and we could talk to Al about this too. But the schedule coming up is not like, for Knicks fans who want this hot start, it's not going to be very easy. Like, even tomorrow night, you have the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons aren't bad. Like, they're not a team like you could see like, hey, they're going to beat the Knicks in a playoff series or whatever as a measuring stick. But the Pistons are not bad. Like, they're not where they were last year, the year before, whatever. You're in Houston, you're in Atlanta. Road games in the NBA are tough. You get the Bucks, which, I mean, the Bucks are kind of in disarray, but they still have the talent, so we'll see. And then you're in Indiana, and then it's like NBA Cup time around then. They'll see the 76ers. I don't know who from Philly is going to be suiting up, because we still haven't seen Joel Embiid yet for some reason. Paul George is a little understandable.
Is he still alive? I mean, that man never shows up to work, man. It must be good to get a big fat check and not show up to work.
Al, that's the life I seen you living too. I know you know about that life.
No. Now, hey, listen. It's not like I don't want to be on there. All right, let's get
no.
that
Oh,
straight.
no. Let me be very clear. That is a joke with Al, because Al is one of the hardest working people, period. And in sports broadcasting, Al, you know I know that, and it's always love. Al, when you look at this upcoming schedule for the Knicks that Bryan was just alluding to, I agree with Bryan. It's not maybe as easy as some people may think, but do you think it's an opportunity for the Knicks, who may have played their hardest game on this trip already? You think it's an opportunity for them to get back above 500 and stay there?
Well, they got, what is it, at Houston? I see here, Detroit tomorrow night, then at Houston and Atlanta. There's no reason Knicks, with the win last night, cannot be 3-1 in this road trip. I mean, the Hawks stink. Let's call what it is. The Hawks stink. The Pistons, I know, Bryan, you said they improved, and they still stink as well. The Knicks should get a W there. The Rockets are the only one I can see a little issue with. But this should be an easy 3-1 road trip. And then what were the other games you said?
So after that road trip, they're home against Milwaukee. They're in Indiana, so you're going to see Tyrese Halliburton again, and
Revenge.
then you're in Philly. And for whatever reason, none of these are back to backs. There's a day off in between most of these.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's going to be a while. We're going to have great games. We're going to have bad games. Bryan, maybe you're right. Maybe there'll be a loss in there. You're like, man, what the hell just happened here? But there's no excuses. This Knicks team, I knew once when Brunson was saying he's got to be better, he's got to give the ball to Towns and stuff. I felt like he was playing too much hero ball, and it was too much of last year's Brunson, and he needs to trust his teammates now. I'm not going to be one of these Knicks fans that were killing Brunson. Oh, he's ball hog. Man, shut up. If it wasn't for this man, we still be irrelevant, you morons. Anyway, so what's going on with this Knicks team is going to take time. It's going to take patience. You've been patient since 72 was the last chip.
73.
Be patient. When it's all said and done, it'll be the Knicks and the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. That is that.
All right, I like
that's my prediction too, by the way, Dex. As much as I talk about, like, I think the Cavs can get 2 seed because they're regular season good, I still think the Knicks probably beat them in the playoff series, assuming health.
I would agree. Al's confident. I have to say, for Al, to let people know, Al Cintron, the great host from WFAN, joining us to talk about the Knicks. Al has been very confident with some of the predictions this year. In fact, Al, I'm going to take it away from basketball for 1 second, because you, my friend, I believe, I don't even remember the exact amount of wins you told me, but I remember talking to you the night before the first Sunday of the NFL season, and you said to me, how many wins did you say for the Commanders? What did you tell me?
I said, if you want to make money, the easiest money you're going to make is over 6.5 wins on the Commanders this season.
That man told me that, and I did not listen. Okay, I did not listen. I did not listen to him. I should have listened to him. And now every time I see him when I'm working at WFAN, and I know he'll be doing this later to just troll the Giants fans, which I like, he's going to be rocking the Commanders gear, and he's feeling good. So I'm just saying his predictions have been pretty good kind of lately. You might want to rock with Al. That's all I'm saying.
You control the Jets too, because they're losing 7-0 right now, and it's about
I saw that Joe Mixon on my parlay touchdown. How you doing? I'll take that one. I'm still I'm waiting for some Jets action as well. But as far as my predictions, they don't call me Alstradamus, still Alstradamus for no reason. All right, most of the time I've been right. Most of the time I've been right, especially about that man in the Bronx that plays center field that can't catch a fly ball.
There's no way you weren't going to come on here and not troll the Yankee fan. There's no way you were not
Come
going to
on.
come out.
The big brother showed the little brother how it's done, right? Yeah, you sure did.
None of us are Yankee fans up here.
I know Dexter's not. I didn't know you were, Bryan. You're not, so hey.
I'm a Met fan. Yeah.
Good. All right, good.
My entire family except my brother, basically.
Yeah.
All Met fans. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. Bryan was raised right. We got no problem with that.
Wait, what year was he born? It depends. Did you see? Were you alive for 86 or no?
No, I was not.
Oh man, so you've been a lot. It's been a lot of negativity to you.
Yeah. I came up. Mike Piazza was my guy when I was like 5-6 years old.
Oh, you don't want to know I'll leave my Mike Piazza stories to off camera. You don't want to know
the only person working on the show that's a Yankees fan is our producer Jeff Stansberry.
Al, did you like the Knicks
Jeff.
over under this year at 54.5 for the season?
I thought it was on the money. Last year I said take the over. I thought this one was tough. I didn't even touch it because one injury and they're not hitting the over. If it was in the 40s, it would have been like last year. I believe it was low, maybe mid
47 last year.
40s.
47.
Yeah. I said take the over. That was easy money. But the 50-something, that's a little dicey because one injury ruins everything.
That's fair.
One, it felt high to me, 54.5. And I also don't think they need 55 wins to prove anything. I think they can be a 3 seed, win like 52, 53 games and still get to the Eastern Conference Finals, which I think is the expectation.
Yeah, you said something about the Cavs. They can have the 2 seed. The Cavs can have the 1 seed if they want. They don't scare me at all. The Knicks and the Cavs in the playoffs, Brunson's going to cook Donovan Mitchell's spider. You know what? He's going to cook him.
Yeah, I like the confidence from Al Cintron joining us from WFAN. Al, how are you feeling about the Knicks offense? Because you just talked about the fact that there were some Knicks fans who talked about when Karl-Anthony Towns, Bodega Cat, had 8 shots against Cleveland. Okay, I did see some of that talk about how Brunson is ball hogging. I didn't agree with that either, so I'm with you. But how do you feel about the offense specifically in what you saw last night against Miami and how they bounced back?
I think it'll be somewhere in the middle of what you saw last night. Cat ain't going to score 40-some points every night. You might as well put him in the Hall of Fame right now. Well, the thing I did like is Bridges had the long game going. That was the most confident I've seen him since he's been a Knick, and it's only been a handful of games. But that's the Bridges that we traded 16 first-round picks for. That's the one you want to see. There was balanced. 6 guys scored. And I think this is what you're gonna when the Knicks are going like this, it's gonna be hard to beat them. Unless you're the Boston Celtics hitting 36 threes in the first half.
Right. I mean, that now you look at that and you look at the games that have been played, it's such an anomaly, and the Celtics are the Celtics. But speaking of threes, Al, there was also talk about the Knicks getting up more threes, right? They only had 28 against the Cavs. They put up 40 against the Heat. I'm about them putting up more threes, but the thing I've been saying is they got to get more quality. It's about the quality of those threes. Are you with me on that? Obviously, in today's game, you have to shoot more threes. That is necessary from just a numbers standpoint. But what concerns you more, them getting up more threes, or is it the quality of threes for you?
It's the quality of threes, because anybody can come down campaign and chuck up a 3. It's not a quality shot. How many times have I seen campaign take a 3 and I look at Tibbs right away when he's able to be on the camera and he's either biting the paper or shaking his head or has his hand in his head because campaign just chucked up a 3 that was not productive. So I think in the flow of the offense is fine, but if you just chuck him, it's not going to work out.
I would agree.
Campaign is one of these dudes, like, he has a role now, but I feel like in February, you might see, maybe it's the Mitchell Robinson contract and you turn it into 2 players, and maybe one of them is just another backup guard just to be out there with Deuce.
I was going to say, campaign, he's going to be something in February. He's going to be a trade piece. That's what he's going to be in February.
Damn.
Al, what do you think so far of, because you mentioned Mikal Bridges, and we haven't really talked about OG Anunoby at all, but where are you at with his sort of slow offensive start so far? And I feel like we haven't really felt that impact yet. that I think people are expecting. It's only been 4 games, but where you at with OG Anunoby? And Dex, I want you to answer that too, also.
Okay.
If you saw when they needed OG to step up offensively in the playoffs before he got hurt, he stepped up when he had to. But to me, this is who he is. You want him to bring energy on defense every night. You want him to be available most games. And the most important thing is, come playoff time, he's going to give you everything you expected more. So I think Knicks fans need to lower the expectation. I know the contract's not going to make it easy, but OG's not going to score 20, 25 points a night. He's not the offensive player Mikal Bridges is. I'm expecting Bridges to go for 18 to 20 a night with Brunson at the point guard and Cat. I'm expecting that easy. I said it before the season to my coworker. I'm like, Bridges is going to put up 18 to 20 on this Knicks team. And then with Cat, that's another 20 plus on the team. With Brunson, that's 3 20 plus scorers, and anybody can go off any night. But as far as OG Anunoby goes, if he gives you 13 to 15, plays great defense, then you should be happy with that.
Yeah, I'm with that, Brian. I even think the game he had last night, he only takes 6 shots. They're all from downtown. He's 3 of 6 from downtown. Is he spacing the floor? Is he hitting the corner 3? Is he defending the other team's best player, which he's going to take pretty much every night? And we know he can guard 1 through 5, which makes him so valuable. If OG Anunoby is doing what Al said, and he's giving you 13 to 15 points a night, I like to see him maybe pull down a little bit more, get a little bit better on the glass. But some of that is by scheme and who he's defending on the perimeter. So that's going to change for him. But if he's giving you 5 or 6 boards, he's giving you 13 to 15 points, and is playing all NBA defense, I don't care. It's not about the points. It's about what he contributes to winning basketball. That's what it is for me with OG Anunoby. So far, it's been, and you said it, quiet, right? Like, it's been quiet. Is it quiet, or is he doing exactly what he needs to do against what defenses are allowing him to do? It's fine. OG's going to have some games through the season where he's going to put up 24, 25, have a night where he goes 6 of 7 from downtown. I'm sure we'll see that. I'm not worried about that. I think OG is a key player. The thing you should worry about with him is health. That's what you're worried about. You want him healthy and ready for the playoffs. That's the fair concern. But when he's on the floor, if he's giving you the defensive effort he is, I think he's fine. I look at him like Josh Hart. He's not quite the rebounder Josh Hart is, but as a connector, what I'm talking about, connecting that offense in the first unit together, I think that's really important. Really important there.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because OG Anunoby and Josh Hart are both 5 of 18 from 3 so far this year. 28%. I don't think that's going to stick, by the way.
I don't think so either.
But I find that very interesting, because I think people are like more worried about Josh Hart shooting, and it's like, well, OG's been doing the exact same so far.
And last night combined, they were 5 of 11, right? So, in that game, if they're hitting the shots they need to, OG hit, 3 threes, Josh hit 2. I'm not worried about OG. I think he's going to get better looks as the offense knows. I'm not worried at all. I'm with Al on this 100%. I think he does. He is the least of my worries within the offense of this Knicks team, if I'm being completely honest. Least of my worries.
I think he's still trying to find his way. He got here at the trade deadline last year. Then they had the run, he got hurt, and now he's back with a new group of guys. So I think he's just trying to find his way and find his niche. I think if anything, he'll be more effective with the second unit when Bridges is on the bench and it's him and maybe just Brunson, and now they can run the offense between them two. And I just think he's just finding his way right now. The Knicks fans, don't worry about it. If you expect him to score 25 points per game, then that's on you for feeling disappointed.
I agree. I think that was a little foolish if you thought that was going to happen. And listen, for the fans, because you brought it up, Al, the fans that are worried about the money and the contract that he makes, hey, that was the price, the market price of a 3-and-D player right now this summer. Relax. It is going to be a smaller percentage of the cap in 2 years. It'll go down. It was a fine signing. It's one the Knicks had to make. I think OG Anunoby is a connector, a winning player. It's fine. It's totally fine.
They had to sign him. He would have ended up in Philly. Knicks fans would have been upset if he went to Philly. So, I mean, come on now. Don't start this, Knicks fans. Don't start this.
Yeah, don't start it. We got thanks to all the Knicks fans checking with us on YouTube. Teams have to focus on Cat's from brightest future. Cat's well-rounded display now. This will open it up for Brunson and the boys. I agree. When Cat spreads the floor, when he's able to knock down the threes, when he's aggressive, I think it'd be fine. How are you feeling about Bodega Cat, Al? How are you feeling about him in New York right now? How are you feeling about what you've seen from him through 4 games?
I better never see another game where he takes 8 shots. I'll say that right now. It's early, but that should never ever happen because that soft label and not having a heart that is gonna follow him every damn game unless he wins a championship in the Knicks. Then that goes away forever. I just need him to be aggressive out the game, get him involved early, get his confidence going early, and then let the rest happen. Just let it happen naturally. When it's forced, it never works out. That goes in anything in life, whether it's teammates, relationships, it doesn't matter. If it's forced, it doesn't work. Just let it flow naturally, and the Knicks will be all right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I've said, you brought up the soft thing with him. I think the soft label on him has been a little bit harsh. And my coworker Stephen Bondi wrote a good piece about this earlier in training camp. My one concern with Cat is about, and I said this early in the show, it's about him being able to stay on the floor and not making stupid fouls in crunch time, particularly in the playoffs. Because even last night, there was some ticky-tack fouls where I'm like, yo, what are you doing? Yo, what are you doing, man? Like, you don't, why are you doing that? Why are you fouling this person 30 feet from the basket? Why are you grabbing this guy?
He got caught with his hand in a cookie jar a few times, last night.
Yeah, and that's my concern with him because we've seen that before in the playoffs where he's not on the floor for his team when you need him. I think you watched last night, he played aggressive. Now, some people might want to say Jimmy Butler had something to do with it. He wanted to show out. You saw when he had the and one on Jimmy Butler, he flexed on him. I like that. I love all that. It's all great. But Al, for you, it's about playoff time with him, right? He's got to show this and be able to stay on the floor during the playoffs. We're a long way from that, I know, but just saying.
Yeah, health, get to the playoffs healthy, and then I'll take my chances against anyone. I said it last year with the Knicks team we had. I didn't fear anyone. I called out Boston for months. That's who I wanted. Unfortunately, the injury guards had something to do with it. It didn't happen. This year, I told my coworker is a Boston Celtics fan. I said, you make sure that European over there that likes to wear a three-piece suit instead of being on the floor, make sure he's ready come playoff time because I want the Knicks 100% versus your Celtics 100%. Let's do this. No excuses.
Look at you out here taking shots at KP. I see you. I see you out here.
Do I have to look at his Knick career? My man spent more time in a three-piece suit than he did in the damn Knick jersey.
I do want to see Towns against KP and Joel Embiid. I do want to see those two.
I do want to see this too.
Yeah. Now that we've seen him against others, but I want to see them more so like in February, March, April, because now we're just trying to get through like this first period of the regular season where things are weird and obviously everyone's already getting injured, so you don't want to risk that either.
Al, a couple more things before we let you go. Sure. Is there anybody in the East that scares you? Because I'm getting this confidence from you. You're out here talking to the Celtics fans, your coworkers, Celtics fan. You're letting them know. Is there anybody in the East that scares you that could be that as a Knicks fan that you think is a threat to them or you're worried about in the conference?
Besides Boston, hell no. Like none of them. Milwaukee, they might end up trading Giannis by the deadline. They're a mess. They're getting smoked out by the Grizzlies right now. John Moran almost had a triple double by the half. They were down 20. The Nets, they're still in the league. They're still around. Nobody cares about the damn Nets.
Oh man,
then you got the Heat. I don't fear the Heat. They're old. I don't care about them unless they get Giannis because Pat Riley always pulls some rabbit out of his hat. Who else? Cleveland. Ain't scared of no damn Cavaliers. We smacked them in the playoff. We'll smack them again. They don't scare me. Donovan Mitchell don't do anything when it matters the most. Who else you got in the East? Atlanta, forget it. They're past. They'll be fighting for
Indiana
again. No. If we were, I'm not gonna do the if thing because I always say if it didn't happen. Congratulations. Give me Indiana fully healthy. You see what happens.
Philly.
No, they don't even. They're still playing. They haven't even played together. Yeah, from what I hear in Philly, they have had it with Joel Embiid over there. They have had it.
Well, I got two good friends from college, two of my boys. Shout out to my boys, Ricky and Bryan, both from Philly. And I texted them before the season to talk to them about it. And I don't remember which of the two said this, but they were like, I think it was my man Ricky. Ricky was like, yo, as long as Embiid's here, we're not winning anything. And I was like, damn, like this is where you are already. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, I just don't think he's going to be there when it matters. Like he's really out on it, and like the city is. I got that vibe. You know, I trust my guys there, despite them rooting for those teams. They're really down on this, but you're really confident in this Knicks team. Let me ask you this, because we talked about this last week here on the show, Al. You know, I know you weren't one of those people because you're a very level-headed dude, but some people were jumping out the window after the Boston game. You try. I know you try. Some people were jumping out the window after the Boston game. Do you think this Knicks team is going to be ready for the challenge the next time they see the Boston, which isn't until February? Do you think they'll be ready for that challenge?
Most definitely. They're not going to forget that. You know, listen, I was looking forward to Boston, New York. It sounded great. But in my head, did I think the Knicks were going to be ready? No. I would have been shocked if the Knicks would have won that game. Did I expect the Knicks to lose by 30? No, I did not expect that neither. But Tibbs said before the game, he was worried about their three-point defense, and he hit the nail on the head. They couldn't stop anybody from three-point range. And the Celtics did everything. My man pulled up from half court, shot it backwards underneath his legs and hit a three. So Boston was hitting everything, bro. No one was beating them. Michael Jordan, Pippen, Robin, they weren't beating that Celtic team that day. But for the rematch in February, Tibbs will have them boys ready to go. They're not gonna forget that.
All right.
Here's the thing about that rematch too that's important. That rematch is on February 8th. The trade deadline is on February 6th. So we might see a little bit, you know, a couple new pieces maybe on each side heading into that. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's the first game for, I think, both teams, but definitely for the Knicks after the trade deadline.
That's crazy how that worked out, the schedule. NBA, what you do? You could have gave us before the deadline versus the Celtics, so you can see if we need to make another move or two. But hey, as luck will have it, it's after the deadline. So the boys need to get it together before that Celtic game, because I listen, when it's all said and done, like I said in the beginning, it'll be the Knicks will be the 2 or 3 seed, because you know one of these teams will chicken out. They don't want to play another team like they did last year. It'll be Knicks, Boston, Eastern Conference Finals. And the winner of that series will win the NBA championship. I don't care who comes out the West.
Damn, I like
that.
Even
have you seen OKC yet this season?
They have to prove they could do it in the playoffs.
Okay.
Before
I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
OKC's good.
Yeah, 2 years ago they were my team. Like, watch out for OKC. Then they had a nice little run. Then last year I picked Orlando. They had a nice little run. This year it's tough to pick a team because everybody's, I got Wemby. Well, that's the easy answer right there. I took the Rockets as a sleeper team this year because they didn't make the playoffs. They didn't make it last year, right? No, they had a chance.
No,
but
they didn't make it.
I don't fear anybody in the West. The Knicks, fully healthy, can beat anyone, and that's that. And I'm not just a New Yorker talking that. I've seen a lot of bad Knicks basketball. Bryan, you've seen a lot of bad Knicks basketball. Dexter, you've seen a lot of bad Knicks basketball.
Yeah, we have.
Is not.
I've seen mostly bad Knicks. I've seen mostly bad Knicks basketball because I'm younger. I didn't. You know, like I. By the time the '90s run was over, I was like 5, 6.
So he didn't have that. He didn't have that, Al.
Oh yeah. Listen, those are hard games to watch. If you wanted offensive basketball, those are not the games for you.
No, they were not.
No, those are the games for me. That's the basketball I like. I like watching both teams struggle to score at the very end of games. And it's disgusting. Like 7. I really enjoyed the Liberty and Lynx game 5 because it was like just painful trying to watch both teams work through that. But it was amazing at the same time. Like, I love low scoring defensive basketball. I like when games are like in the NBA
fighting for every possession.
Yes.
That is
give me 84-82 with 2:11 left in the fourth quarter. Like, the 3-point stuff is cool. The high flying stuff, like the fast paced stuff, like that we have now is cool. But I still appreciate watching both teams work through that struggle and watching muddy possession after muddy possession.
Wait a minute. You would have loved Nick seat 73-69. I mean, you'd have loved that.
Yeah, he would have loved that. He would have loved that, Al. Al, last thing before we let you go. Knicks got we talked about Detroit. They're in Detroit, the Motor City, to play the Pistons. What are you looking for in that game? How do they keep the good vibes going on Friday night in the Motor City against the Pistons?
Well, Duran is a rebounding machine. That guy, and if he's playing anybody bigger than him, he struggles. But anything equal to him or a little small, he just dominates the board. So I need the Knicks tomorrow to set the tone on the boards No easy second chance points on the boards, and let the continued improvement from with the offense flowing naturally, equal balance, equal shots. Everybody eats. That's what I'm looking for tomorrow night versus the Stones.
All right. I think if the Knicks can do that, they can get a win. It can move over 500 for the first time this season. They will move to 3-2 with a victory on Friday over the Pistons. That is my guy, Al Cintron. Check him out on WFAN. Always bringing the energy. Sometimes he and I work late nights. Al doing the show. I'm doing the updates. We haven't done that in a while, Al. It's been a minute since we've done that together.
Yeah, I'm not on this weekend either. So my football picks
Neither
are
am I.
posted. Yeah, my football picks are posted on my Paolo and Caro. He's out indefinitely, torn oblique
Oh, that's a
from
big
Orlando.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
popped up
my!
in the bottom of the screen.
You just
You
popped
just
off
talked
the
about
other
it, Brian.
night.
You just talked about it. Everybody's getting injured. Look at that. Maybe he's been hanging out with Embiid, drinking pina coladas, and he got hurt doing that. I mean, it's crazy.
Yo.
That's another team that could
Crazy.
fall. And I don't know how long a torn oblique is, but it ain't a little bit. That's a team
Oblique
that
is a
could.
No, it's
tough
not.
injury. It's never a little bit.
Like that could be months.
No, but it ain't the Knicks. Not our problem.
I'm not gonna laugh about injuries, but yes,
I'm not laughing about the injuries. I'm laughing how we went through it in the playoffs last year. Not easy to deal with.
I see. I hear you. I understand. Nah, but listen, I like your optimism, like your confidence. Everybody, check out Al on the Fan. Check him out there for sure. On the Fan, he's there overnight sometimes, doing a great job with all of us here on the Fan. The great Al Cintron. Al, appreciate you joining us. I know you had technical difficulties. Appreciate you rocking with us, and we'll have you back on soon.
We made it work.
Definitely. Let's go Knicks. Nice to finally talk to you, Brian. We'll catch up soon as well.
Yes,
sir.
Boricua!
Yes, sir. I got the gloves right behind me. The boxing gloves right behind me over my shoulder.
Hey, I got my Kodo glove somewhere.
There you go. I was outnumbered with 2 Puerto Ricans here today, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Where are you gonna get that on a New York sports show?
You're not gonna get that more. We need more Puerto Rican and Latino representation out there. That's another story for another day. Appreciate you, my brother Al. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Love you too, brother. Thank you. There's Al Cintron. Check him out. As I said, joining us here this week on Knicks Weekly. We're going to get out of here. We've gone a little bit over our time, but before we go, because Bryan hit me up with this idea the other day, and he hit me up, and I was like, all right, we got to do this. So we're going to do this thing. We're going to try to do it every week where we have this segment called Real or Not. We're going to talk about what's real or not, and we want you guys watching to let us know if you agree with it, if you rock with it, if you think it's real or not. We want you to let us know. So first thing I want to talk about is some things we've been keeping our eye on, some that we've discussed here. Let's start with Josh Hart, okay? Josh Hart, the rebounding rate last couple of games, it's been looking good. You see the numbers right there on the screen, 16.7% rebounding percent this season. His career best is 13.8. So this is better than he's ever been in terms of rebounding the ball. I get it. It's 4 games, small sample size, folks. But is this real or not, Brian? Can Josh Hart keep this up? Will he have the best rebounding rate of his career? Real or not? What you say?
Of his career, I think that could be real. I think it could be real because the way the team is constructed and Mitchell Robinson's not playing right now. So the pathway is kind of there because while Karl Anthony Towns has done a good job on the boards in totality, he's not going to get 20 every game, 15 every game, nothing like that. Like, I think there's a pathway for Josh Hart to potentially do that on this team and the way the roster fits. So I'll say real. I don't know if it's going to be 17%, but I think it could be real.
I actually agree. I think it's real. I don't know if it'll be 17%, but I think it's real. He could hit 14.5 to 15%. I think that number is real with this team and the way he's constructed, and he just is relentless in going for boards. He is literally the best rebounding person for his size. We're at 6'4" and under, right, in the league. So
I forget he's only 6'4". He plays like he's 6'8", 6'7".
He does, and I think that matters on this team a lot. So I'm going with you. I'm rocking with this. I'm going real. I think he's going to stay. There will be some dippage, if you want to say that, at some points, but I think, or slippage in the numbers, I should say. But yeah, I'm going with Josh Hart's rebounding rate as real.
have
All
one
right,
for
next
you.
one I want to talk to you about is Miles McBride.
Yes, that's
Okay.
where I wanted to go next.
Miles McBride. Look. I talked about this. I talked about this with Sky Zoo, who joined me this week on New York Got Game, was in the studio with me to talk about it. Shout out to Sky Zoo. New album dropping at the end of the month. New single with Method Man out right
Always
now.
love a new Sky Zoo album. Always.
I'm not sure, Brian. And Brian, I'm a little older than you, and Al and I were talking about this watching Knicks a little longer than you. I cannot think of a Knicks player, okay, who, in terms of development, I've seen better of an increase in shooting, where the person struggled with their shot, and now when they shoot the ball, I'm like, oh, that's going in. Like it feels automatic. I'm not sure I've seen any Knicks player in my lifetime their shot develop better than I've seen Miles McBride's shot develop in the time that he's been in the league. Right? I'm literally not sure about that. And look, the numbers right now are stupid. 56% from downtown. Understand, folks?
That won't. Yeah, that'll take a dip.
I'm not. And the real or not is not me saying that he's going to shoot 56%. We know basketball here. We're not saying that.
Yes.
Okay? We're not saying that. 36% last year in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's above league average. That's kind of where you want him to shoot. That or better. Can he do that? So what I'm asking, real or not, for you, Brian, is can he shoot 36% or better this year, which he's doing right now? Obviously, it's astronomical at 56%. And that means 1 out of every 2 shots is absolutely going in. He is a career 36% shooter from downtown. So, Brian, is the shooting, not the 56% shooting from downtown, is the great shooting we're seeing from McBride real? And do we see him closer to a 40% three-point shooter this year?
I was going to say 40% is probably the number. You remember Quentin Grimes? Remember him?
Yeah.
Because he was in front of Deuce McBride in like the guard rotation and was supposed to be like the next 3-and-D guy. And they ended up trading him and was like, hey, we'll extend Deuce McBride and give him a role and see what's happening. And it turned out to be another smart front office. I can't believe how smart this front office has been, given what we've seen for the last 20, 25 years.
We have
body
seen
of work.
incompetence.
This is legitimately one of the smartest front offices in basketball and has been for 3 years now. Maybe like something along those lines. Some may argue even longer than that. I think the shooting is real. I think he could shoot 40% or close to 40% from 3 for a season. I do think he can. Like we're end of the season in April, and I think we could see Deuce McBride 38, 39, maybe 40%. Like anywhere along those lines. Is he going to be a 6 man of the year candidate? Like that's an interesting conversation. Right now he would be, but it's 4 games. We'll see. There are some other people I think are going to be strong in that category. Trey Mann, for example, among others, maybe Karis LeVert, depending on how Cleveland goes, but I think he can be in that mix as well. And they definitely won he definitely won the Deuce McBride, Quentin Grimes sort of battle. Quentin Grimes is playing in Dallas right now, but he's hanging on barely to a rotation spot, playing 11 minutes a game.
Yeah, Knicks made the right move there, and they have one of the best value contracts in the NBA right now. I also agree with you on this. I think Deuce McBride's three-point shooting will be really good. I think if he's anywhere close to a 40% three-point shooter, that is a huge, huge, huge plus for the Knicks, who can still add another shooter. We'll see what happens when Landry Shamet comes back. We'll see what happens going forward. I just wanted to know, I saw Brightest Future. We appreciate you checking in with us in the comments. He did make a good point. He said Precious out is getting Hart more opportunity also. I think that is a fantastic point there in terms of his rebounding percentage. Shout out to you, Brightest Future. That is a really good point there, and I think that is impacting those numbers too. I do think that's why I think you'll see some slippage in those numbers, but I still think you can see 14.5% to 15% in terms of his rebounding rate. That wouldn't shock me here. Okay, last thing, Brian. I do love this segment because I think it is absolutely fun. I think there'll be some things to talk about each week. One talked about Jalen Brunson with his assists, increasing him dishing the rock. We saw 9 assists against the Heat on Wednesday night. He's got a 3.29 assist to turnover ratio. That would be his career best. 29.9, excuse me, just under 30% assist percentage. His career best is 31.5, which we saw last season. Now, I'm somebody who said, okay, this year he's got some better talent around him in the starting five. I talked about this with Kevin Walsh Jr. when he came on me in terms of betting the Knicks. Would it be a good bet to bet Jalen Brunson over 6.5 assists per game this year? I thought we could see some of those assist numbers increase. You saw it closer even to around 7 in playoffs with, I would say, lesser talent in the starting five. Do you think this is something we see? We saw him looking for more of his teammates on Wednesday night. Do you see those assist numbers going up for Jalen Brunson? Is that real or not?
So far, his usage would also be a career high, 32.6. So it's weird. I think the usage will come a little bit down. It was 32.5 last year, 32.6 this year. And I feel like it can maybe land at like 30, 31-ish. So maybe a slight drop off. I think the assist turnover ratio could be real. I don't know if he's going to get to, because I've seen some people talking about they want to see him get 7-8 assists per game, which, you know me, real point guards stand up. Like, I want to see point guards average 7-8 assists per game all the time. But I don't know if he's going to do that, but I think he can, and I do think it'll benefit like just how they're built now to get those catch and shoot opportunities for OG Anunoby, for Mikal Bridges. And some of this is, you know, it could be just guys missing shots. We mentioned OG Anunoby and Josh Hart only shooting 28% each from three. Like, I think both of those numbers, at least one of those numbers, but both of those numbers are likely to come up. At the same time, Karl Anthony Towns was like 73% from three. I'm not even joking. Like, that's the actual number. And that's going to drop.
Yes.
You know, like maybe he's at 40 at the end of the year, maybe not. I don't know. But I think the assist to turnover ratio could be real. I still would like to see the assist total and the assist percentage, which is under 30%, come up a little bit, because that's dropped from the 33% last year. Ultimately, what people are going to care about are wins and losses. But I do think there's room for him to kind of make that next step as a floor general because of the team that they have around him. He actually has more help this year to do that. So
yeah, I think so. And I think you make a great point about if some of those shooting percentages, specifically on catch and shoot threes from guys like Mikal Bridges, like OG Anunoby, go up. I think you could see those assist numbers go up. I am intrigued about his usage. I'm glad you brought that up. And I think that's something for us to keep an eye on that might come up in another real or not segment that we'll do in a couple of weeks. But I think the increase in dish to rock, I think you will see the assist numbers and the assist percentage go up. I don't know how much that'll go up, but I do think it'll go up, especially as guys feel more comfortable in the offense and start hitting more shots, which I expect to trend within the right direction. So we'll see how that goes. That's real or not for this week. We'll do that every week. I think it's a fun segment to look at some things going on with the Knicks. We'll let you know how we feel about it. You can let us know how you feel about it. But we have had ourselves quite a long show. We appreciate those of you rocking with us. You could have been watching other stuff like Thursday Night Football. I don't even know the score of the game. The Jets are probably losing because they do Jet stuff. But there will be a good post-game show on after that.
10-7, they're losing. They
losing.
just started trailing because Texans kicked the field goal. Shout out to the underbetters, because that looks like it's going under.
That looks like
4 minutes left. 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Also, fantasy football people, Garrett Wilson scored a touchdown. So we're in there.
That helps my fantasy team. So good stuff there. For those watching with us that love that we're doing these live shows on the New York Post Sports Channel, please check out the Jets post-game live show with Ryan Sampson on there, and that'll be a good job. Check out those guys on there doing the Jets post-game live. I know they are hoping for a happy recap because they haven't had one in quite some time. It has been 5 straight weeks of unhappiness around the Jets with that. So we are just trying to send them all the good vibes that we could. Thank you to everybody for rocking with us tonight, whether you were watching on Twitter, whether you were watching YouTube, sending in the comments. Everybody who did, we appreciate you. We'll be back next Thursday. Next Thursday will be a little bit earlier at 7:30 with our start time. Also, special thank you to my fantastic producer, Jeff Stansbury, who does a fantastic job of making all of this look great. He is Bryan Fonseca. I'm Dexter Henry. Also, programming note for everybody this week on New York Got Game episode that'll drop on Monday. We will have a college basketball season preview. We'll be looking at a little bit of St. John's, Rutgers, some of the teams around the NYC metro area. So we'll be talking about that this weekend. And we'll also talk a little bit of the Knicks and as they come to the end of their 4-game road trip as well. So Knicks fans, stay tuned for that. We will be back next week, as I said, with another show of New York Got Game Knicks Weekly. He is Bryan Fonseca.